Okay, it's Outsider Bushcraft. We'll do a little short talk on sleep systems. Now, the problem with sleeping bags is their bulk, how much room they take up. This time around, I went out looking for a sleeping bag, and I think it's a 30-degree bag. I typically would go with a zero, but in the summer and warmer weather, I decided I want to pick this up, and I found a couple other ways of using it. This thing is just, the style a little bigger than a football. It's a nice size for a sleeping bag. I feel like I'm not taking too much stuff with my pack. I like to carry mostly food, my wool blanket, and a sleeping bag. Now, I have done the wool blanket on the outside of the sleeping bag, sleeping next to a fire and stuff to keep the sparks off. I have done wool blanket on the inside of the sleeping bag, and I thought that was very comfortable. It heats up really fast, and you stay very warm. It totally takes this 30-degree bag and must bump it up another 20 degrees or something or more. I'm not sure, but much increases the warmth of when you're using a sleeping bag like this. So if you're out looking for a sleeping bag, I'm going to say only buy one sleeping bag. I would say get a 0-degree bag. In this region, at least the Pacific Northwest, you don't usually deal with temperatures that are too much worse than that. And get a 0-degree bag. But if you want to go lighter and you want to go smaller, and still be using a synthetic. Now, I do use synthetic out here because it's the Pacific Northwest and everything is wet all the time. Rain is a huge factor. Your bag inevitably will get wet, and if that happens and you're using a down bag, you're going to lose that ability to stay warm, and that's not something I'm willing to sacrifice in this region. So out here, I go synthetic, and the temperatures we get, a 30-degree bag is good a lot of the time. You could probably get by with a 20-degree bag and just eke through even in colder weather. But I would go 0 if I could take only one. But the problem with that is they're so big. So when I want to, so they got this little bag. I tried it out with the liners that you can buy for it, and they're very small, just the size of an apple or something. And those two together make this bag much warmer. My wool blanket or the liner added to that makes it extremely warm. So if you want to go with a small bag, and you want to go with a lightweight bag, because you don't think much of sleeping bags, or you just don't want to have that kind of space, you can get yourself a small one and add to it with the layering. Those little tiny, you can buy them at REI or whatever. They're a sleeve or a liner that goes on the inside of this, and you can get ones that are extremely warm. Having good night's sleep is extremely important. If you're in the woods and you're lost, or even just out there for having a good time, for pleasure, getting a good night's sleep makes everything better. If you're tossing and turning and waking up in the cold because your bag is just not warm enough for you, you will make poor decisions and have a miserable time. And when you're out there, the game is 80% mental. It's 20% physical. Anybody's tough enough to do it, but if you get a bad attitude going because you're having bad night's sleep, it can beat you. The wilderness can beat you that way. Getting a good night's sleep is a real essential morale building tool. So having a sleep system that is versatile like that, where, like I said, I like to carry food, very minimal clothing, and as little of this kind of stuff as I can, just because it takes up so much of the pack, and this volume of food would keep me for another week, in the mountains with no problem. So losing that kind of volume is tough, and that's what I try to play that game of, volume to weight ratio. But if you try your light sleep bag with a wool blanket on the inside, it's pretty nice. If you got something to, if the wool irritates you, wear a long johns or whatever. But try that out. Always keep it wrapped in plastic when it's in my bag. I keep it wrapped up. I got a Target, bag on it right now, but typically I use a garbage bag. You know, you're probably not in danger of going into a river and then it's soaking through everywhere, but just the dampness and the moisture working itself through the bag and into your sleeping bag. It's just it's a real bummer when it gets dunked or it gets moist and then you got to sleep in a wet bag. So wrap it in plastic and throw it in the bottom of your bag, and then when you go through that river you can forget about it because you got it all wrapped up. Yeah, that's the thing. I have gone backpacking in a full kilt before, the traditional wool kilt, and they used to wear them. That was their whole bedroll, was their clothes. They'd take the kilt, and it is a chunk of wool that is 6 feet wide and 18 feet long, and they would fold it in half and then make pleats in it just by hand on the ground, belt it onto themselves, and that was their bedroll and their clothing all in one. They wore a shirt and stuff, and if you want to try that route out, I will tell you it does work, and it cuts the size of your pack down, which makes your whole load lighter because you have a smaller pack and you can just take more food and go further and go longer and have less weight, and it's very enjoyable. The wool dried quickly, it moved well, I had no problems going through totally off country, rugged terrain, and it worked out fantastically. The only thing was I got the summer weight kilt, which is 100% wool from Scotland, and they make a winter weight. And I shied away from the extra money because I thought, at the time, that's, all that wool, it should be plenty warm. But I wish I had gotten the winter weight. That would have been the choice. Then I could have really used it for that. But it was a little on the chilly side with the summer weight, trying to use that as a blanket. If I had brought a wool blanket, it would have been more comfortable, and that would have been the extent of my sleep system then, between the kilt and a wool blanket, or the full winter weight kilt, I think would work. So a lot of you guys out there who are wool blanket enthusiasts and are big on wearing your wool gear, look into full great kilts. They're called a great kilt, and it is just one big chunk of wool. It might be the best way for you to get your hands on a lot of premium wool, actually, if you don't mind that Scotch plaid. You can get any tartan you want, but check it out. As for a sleep system, that if you haven't tried that, you might check that out because you might find that to be another option where your clothes are your blanket, is your bedroll. You can make shelter out of it. You can throw it up over your head and do all kinds of stuff. So there's lots of ways to make it out there for a sleep system, whether you're a tarp and a wool blanket junkie, or you want to do your layering sleeping bags, or go all out for the great kilt. If you got another one out there, you can throw at me for a good sleeping system. I want to hear about it. But if you're looking to get a lighter sleeping bag, you can make it warmer. Always think about that. If I got a little tiny football-sized sleeping bag, I can always make it warmer by putting the inner linings on the inside. One thing you want to make sure is that it can take the chest width. So if you want to put a blanket on the inside of your sleeping bag, make sure that you get a bag that's broad enough, because if you start putting extra stuff on the inside, it'll stretch that bag out and compress it, and you'll lose that fluff of air that keeps you warm. So take that into account when you're buying a sleeping bag. If you want to go small, where you want to be adding sleeves to the inside, that doesn't take up too much volume on the inside, or otherwise, like I said, you'll compress it and then you lose that element of the sleeping bag that keeps you warm. All right. It's Outsider Bushcraft, a short talk on sleep systems. More coming up. Stay safe in the woods.